5 banks in Lebanon held up by depositors demanding access to savings. 5 Lebanese banks were held up by depositors seeking access to their own money, frozen in the banking system on Friday, in a spiraling spat of holdups this week, spurred by frustration over a financial implosion with no end in sight. In one of the incidents, an armed man entered a bank in the South Lebanon city of Ghazi and poured gasoline on the floor of the building, threatening to burn the branch if he could not access his money, state news agency NNA reported. He was able to retrieve $19,200 from the bank and handed it to someone who was waiting for him outside the bank before handing himself in to authorities. Lebanon's Banking Association urged authorities on Thursday to hold accountable those engaging in, quote, verbal and physical attacks on banks and said lenders themselves would not be lenient. Banks said they will be closing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week as a precautionary measure. A historically powerful storm brings seas of up to 54 feet toward Alaska. Alaska is bracing for dangerous weather as the remnants of Typhoon Merbok move toward the Bering Sea region. Forecasters predict that the storm, set to hit on Friday, could bring potentially historical flooding, with some coastal areas seeing water levels of up to 11 feet higher than the normal high tide. Quote, latest models show coastal surge higher than the November 2011 storm that brought significant flooding to the area, the National Weather Service forecasted early Friday morning, adding that the flooding could be potentially historical. Quote, this is a dangerous storm that will produce widespread coastal flooding south of the Bering Strait, with water levels set to rise above those not seen in nearly 50 years, the service said. Power lines could be blown down and roads and houses could be flooded as the water level rises. And as the powerful storm's fierce winds push to the sea ahead, the storm surge will rival that of typical hurricane impacts. A surge of 8 to 11 feet is expected in Nome starting late Friday, with 9 to 13 feet of surge expected near Golovin and 12 to 18 feet of surge along the coast from Elam. The highest waters are expected on Saturday. Student missing, 1 injured after Orlando Rowing Club boat capsizes following lightning strike. A search for a missing student is underway on a Florida lake after a lightning strike caused the rowing team's boat to capsize Thursday afternoon. 5 students with the North Orlando Rowing Club were practicing on Lake Fairview in Orlando around 5:50 p.m. when lightning reportedly struck the area, according to the city spokeswoman Jennifer DeSantis. 1 student went missing during the incident, and another was transported to Advent Health Orlando in unknown condition. The conditions of the remaining 3 students were not immediately released. Authorities also did not specify their ages. The members of the nonprofit group North Orlando Rowing Club were practicing in the water when the incident took place, according to the Orlando Fire Department. Quote, preliminary reports indicate lightning struck the area, the department said. Multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, and the Orange County Fire and Rescue, responded to the scene. Kyrgyzstan reports heavy fighting with Tajikistan, says casualties high. Kyrgyzstan reported intense battles with Tajikistan on Friday and said its Central Asian neighbor was moving forces and equipment to the border in the latest outbreak of violence to hit the former Soviet Union. In a statement, the border service said its forces were continuing to repel Tajik attacks. Both countries have accused each other of restarting the fighting in the disputed area, despite a ceasefire deal. Separately, the head of the Kyrgyz State Committee on National Security was quoted by Russia's RIA news agency as saying military casualties had been high. Kyrgyzstan's Border Guard Service said on Friday that Tajik forces once again opened fire on several of its outposts, an escalation of tension between the Russian allies after a brief confrontation earlier this week. Kyrgyz border guards were returning fire as clashes took place along the whole length of the border, the service said, adding that Tajik forces were using tanks and armored personnel carriers and mortar rounds. In turn, Tajikistan accused Kyrgyz forces of shelling one of its outposts and 7 villages with heavy weaponry. A civilian was killed and 3 others injured, authorities in the Tajik city of Isfara said. Death toll from building collapse in Jordan climbs to 13. The death toll from the collapse of a 4-story building in Jordan's capital this week has climbed to 13, with rescuers still searching for a missing woman, the country's public security directorate said on Friday. It's not clear what caused the collapse on Tuesday of the building in Amman. Authorities have arrested the building's owner and 2 maintenance workers. At least 10 people were injured, and an infant was rescued from the rubble earlier this week. Civil defense forces are using heavy vehicles, specialized equipment, police dogs, and drones to look for survivors and remove the remaining rubble. A group of workers sitting on the edge of the sidewalk near the scene told the Jordan Times, on the condition of anonymity, that nothing from the building could be salvaged. Quote, "It is all ruined,"